Guys, I'm here. Normally, I don't go off the cuff like this, but your boy's YouTube is blowing up. So I'm trying to go from like 7 subscribers to like 12 today with this amazing insight. I couldn't help but kind of show up here and try and talk about how to apply for those crypto compliance positions that haven't even been posted yet, maybe haven't even been created yet. And I just received an email or just received a post yesterday about Bullish Exchange going public. Now, if you remember, and I'm going to walk you down memory lane here and just show you the thought process that I go through. I'm going to share my screen as well to show you the thought process that I go through when it comes to identifying opportunities well before everybody else and well before the positions are posted. So let's share my screen here. We're going to be going back and forth and up and down today, but that's okay. So I'm going to share my screen and I want you to take a look at this post that I did. It was probably over 3 weeks ago when I announced about 20 different crypto compliance job postings. Now, if we scroll down here, in the end, it shows you bullish.com. And at the time, I said no AML compliant positions yet. But due to them being a new exchange with a ton of capital that they just raised, you want to put this on your watch list. This is the way you have to think if you're going to get into crypto compliance. Can you see around the corners? Can you start thinking outside the box? Now, look, so when we saw this announcement, here's the announcement now open to the public, bullish.com on their LinkedIn site. We're excited to announce that Bullish is now available to users in 40 plus jurisdictions. So let's scroll back 30 days ago or 3 weeks ago when I'm telling you, look at all the positions here, but look at this position that you need to put on your watch list. What I would do and the way I would approach this is that at the time I made this post about putting it on their watch list, I would start reaching out to people at Bullish. I would start understanding and doing my research then about what the exchange is. How does it differentiate? I know it's built by the same people, Block One, that did the EOS blockchain. So what are the nuances of this exchange that they're going to be bringing forth? And how do I see what their compliance and AML program would look like? First thing I would start doing is let's look at the organizational structure. We'll go into that into detail, but I really wanted you to see. So what we did, I just see, are you bullish? Obviously, great time now during kind of a bull market. It's probably bear a little bit now, but you start looking for jobs. And lo and behold, there are 4 compliance specialist positions. Now, completely disregard that they're in Gibraltar. My thought process is that right now the world is mostly remote due to the COVID restrictions. So being able to take a look at something like this, Gibraltar might scare away your average AML investigator. To me, if I can get in and start a conversation with somebody, I know that the majority of cryptocurrency compliance and AML blockchain investigations positions are remote for some of the largest exchanges around the world. So although they might say Gibraltar, I am still going to push forward and see if I can make some connections. So the first thing we do, identify potential crypto companies that may need compliance help in the future. Any cryptocurrency compliance or any cryptocurrency exchange, any kind of service provider like a custodian or a broker dealer is going to need a robust AML program. No matter in what jurisdiction they are, they're going to have AML officers, onboarding officers, especially now with how well the market is doing and how many new people are coming to the market. They're going to need to onboard these people, especially as they're scaling up really quickly. So identify it. I identified Bullish before because I didn't see any compliance positions. And you have to be reading the news. Like go on things like Blockworks that announces every day. They do about 5 or 6 posts on their LinkedIn of different cryptocurrency news. So you'll be able to identify who just raised money, like Elliptic just raised $60 million. Breadcrumbs just raised $1.6 million. These are companies that raise money. And once you raise money, you usually have to invest that money back into the infrastructure, including things like compliance, AML, sales. These are all opportunities for you to get in there. Secondly, research the current organizational structure, and see where you would fit in. If they only have a legal team, that's actually better, because that means that they haven't even really built out their compliance team yet. And you're able usually to reach out to the legal counsel or the senior legal advisor and start a discussion around compliance, because those are usually the people that are going to start to build out the compliance program or the risk mitigation program. Better yet, they'll probably have a director or someone at a very tippy top high level chief compliance officer that then needs to find operational people. So by you connecting with these people early on in the stage, like if you reach out to Bullish 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, when I told you to, and start conversations with professionals that may be in legal, risk, compliance, operations, all areas where there's kind of a compliance nuance to it, and start conversations about compliance, you'll stand out from the crowd. Remember, they haven't posted the position yet, so they're not receiving a ton of applications. Technically, you're the only one really showing interest for the most part. So that's something to think about. See what the organizational structure is, see where you would fit in as a compliance professional or AML professional or fraud professional for that matter, and then make your way and navigate your way in connecting with the people. It sounds very strategic, but naturally, if you've done your research about the company, which you should have been doing and will be doing, you're naturally going to come up with questions about, well, what's the compliance look like? First thing you do, remember, go look at the terms of service. See that AML structure that's written in, baked into the terms and service. See if they custodian their own cryptocurrency or if it's a third party. You get a ton of information there. Yes, you have to go through some of the boring stuff, but most of you coming from a compliance and AML background, you're used to looking at legislation. You're used to looking at long form writing. This should be a breeze for you. Thirdly, understand some of the nuances that you could use for your advantage when you're doing this research and prep. So things like jurisdiction, right? Jurisdiction of where they're operating. They said that they're operating in 40 plus jurisdictions. So understanding the majority of those jurisdictions are probably going to be in like EU or somewhere that has formal regulation. So understanding those regulations, understanding what has come out of the 5AMLD and all the AMLDs out of Europe, understanding maybe things like specifically Gibraltar, which has a unique licensing process, as well as a unique AML and program regime. Now I mentioned Gibraltar. Look at companies that operate in that compliance lens. I think of Nathan at XReg and other people at XReg. They're ex-regulators from that area. They probably have a ton of information. I know they have a travel rule explainer. They're going to probably provide a ton of information around cryptocurrency compliance as part of their content, whether it's a blog, whether it's a newsletter, even just reaching out to those organizations and saying, listen, I'm super eager to join this company. I believe that they're going to be registered in Gibraltar. Is there any insights you can give me? Anything you can point me towards? I think taking that kind of ambition goes a long way. I think people appreciate that, especially if you've come to them and said, hey, listen, I have these readings. Am I missing anything? Is there any other? I've done this and I understand these portions. Is there any other nuances? So making sure to understand where you can get competitive advantage by just simply reading in a little bit more, doing a little bit more research, and connecting with key people of influence in those areas, and understanding what are the emerging regs, what are the emerging guidance, what's coming down the pipeline. So when you're interacting with the exchange, with Bullish Exchange, and you're talking to them about compliance, you can say like, well, what about these new regs? How does that affect you? How are you going to navigate it? This is what I think. What do you think? It changes the conversation a lot when you're having meaningful discussions about what's going to be happening, because A, these are things they've already thought of and they're super excited you've thought of them, or B, these are things they've never thought of and they really need to bring you on board to add value because you're thinking far in advance and you'll be able to prepare them for any kind of emerging regs that come out. Next up, identify, I think, the skills and area of expertise that you're bringing to the table, and then how you would identify suspicious activity. Usually in these compliance roles, you need to show you have a vast amount of crypto compliance knowledge, including what are the suspicious indicators? What are the financial crime concerns, especially in the jurisdictions that they operate? I just posted some of the different free crime reports, typologies reports from Chainalysis and Elliptic. So there's no you're not short of any kind of supply of the amount of information that's open source and free that can give you a better idea of what are these exchanges going to be worried about when it comes to fin crime, and how can you help mitigate their risk, and what are some of the severe things that they should be thinking about, like ransomware and the updated regulations and the updated focus by things like US law enforcement. So these are things that you can actually do to think about how are you going to improve when you're in this position, and how are you going to add value to their team, and bringing up these concepts and reaching out. Listen, there's a ton of people that work at cryptocurrency exchanges, including myself. Simply reaching out to people and saying, listen, I'm applying for this job. I understand this amount of crypto compliance knowledge, but I'm wondering what are some of the things that exchanges are specifically worried about so that I can use that to enhance my knowledge and bring to this future team that I'm going to be joining. Those are unique elements. People appreciate conversations around their job, especially if you've done some of the research on your own. Making a connection to related team on LinkedIn. I think we covered that even in the initial stage of how do we get involved and connect with team members slowly but surely, right? And this is why it's so important to connect with the team before the job is posted, because now you've already started a conversation with them. You're talking about compliance, you're adding your insights, you're sharing articles with them, and maybe they're not going to be 100% responsive, but that's okay. You're staying top of mind and you're doing things to add value. You're not reaching out to them every month and saying, hey, when are you going to post a compliance job I'd really like to post? Do not do that. That is not a good strategy. Keep in contact with them. And remember, you're not just doing this for one company. You might be doing this for 5 or 6 or 7 companies that you really want to work with. And you're going to be starting meaningful conversations. This is not a perfect strategy that's going to work 100% of the time. It's actually less likely to work than you think. But when it does work, you start creating positions that nobody else could think of. You start receiving higher compensation. And isn't this a lot better than just sending your resume into that black hole time and time again? So make sure to connect with people. Also, see, a lot of these career pages have general applications. I always point people to my podcast with Liat Shetret from Elliptic, where she talks about how she created her own role, wrote out her own job description, and basically created the job that she was applying for and was hired based on that creation she made. There's no shortage of creativity that you have if you can reach out to a general application and tell them about their future compliance needs and how you fill them. That, my friend, is amazing. And I think that will yield high results. I've already told you, have zero expectations. When I do this often with organizations, when I work with people that are doing this, it seems kind of foo-foo, right? Like, oh, I'm manifesting a job. But it's really very strategic, and it really helps you in your connection skills and networking skills and understanding the way the market works. This is not a guessing game. I'm not Nostradamus. I don't need to think that, oh, this exchange is going to need compliance people, and then 3 weeks later, I called it. No, I just know that if you're building out a cryptocurrency exchange, trading company, broker, dealer, there's always going to be compliance positions. Always, always, always. And even if the positions do not say specifically remote, you act as if it's remote. You think that's remote. You approach them as if it's remote, because the worst that can happen, if they can't find the necessary resources that they need within that jurisdiction, you've already approached them, right? It's either that jurisdiction, if everyone else is not applying because they don't believe they live in Gibraltar, and you're the only one outside of Gibraltar applying, it really level sets you to be in a good position. If they start to expand their search, you're the person that's there front row center because you've been engaging with them months before they even post these jobs. Now you can engage with them and say, hey, I saw that compliance role. We've been talking about compliance for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I would love to see how I can add value to that role. You should already know the role that you're applying for. And if you even go into these roles right now, like the requirements and the experience are not mind-boggling. Relevant experience in KYC and AML, that's pretty much everyone that's in the AML field. excellent communication skills. I told you all to work on that, but definitely fluency in English. Like, we are pretty great with that, I think, for the most part. And fluency in other languages is an asset. This to me is a free throw. Most people are already going to be ready for this job. Most people are already going to be able to do this job easily. So this is just me coming in here really quickly to remind you guys, where else can you do this though? Think of things that are coming through. If you're interested in NFTs, Coinbase NFT marketplace is going to be a beast. They probably are already hiring internally for that, but they're probably ramping up their AML and compliance program to handle that marketplace and to secure their users from things like fraud, theft, scams, and money laundering. Also, OpenSea. There is no way OpenSea can trade that many millions of dollars on billions of dollars on a daily, weekly, monthly basis without eventually needing some AML and compliance protocols. And I think the further we go through this, the further the NFT space grows. And when we see a little bit of an NFT winter and people are mad because they didn't have enough consumer protection, or they invested in an NFT project that wasn't properly vetted by OpenSea, you're going to see more AML and compliance professionals roles open up. Clip it now. Clip this now. I'm telling you now, you're going to see those positions open up. Even interesting places like Uniswap, which is decentralized exchange, I still think there's going to be an element for compliance and AML roles as regulation gets a little bit tighter. There's nobody, and everyone's like, well, FAT have said NFTs are not virtual assets and not going to be regulated like virtual assets unless they're used for investment or for payment. But remember, these NFT marketplaces, just like cryptocurrency marketplaces, don't have the time to go through every NFT and determine if they meet those requirements. They're going to need compliance and AML roles there just to make sure to help them if they go through. And we've already seen Dapper Labs already adopt a partnership with Chainalysis to handle transaction monitoring and things like KYC. So this is the way you look around corners. This is specifically how I look at every type of post. I don't just cheer that this company raised money. I'm thinking like, well, how does this affect our compliance and AML industry? How can I get more people involved? How can I get people applying for positions that don't even exist yet? And this is the exact way to do it. I would love to hear your feedback. And if this was mind-blowing to you, reach out to me. If this was absolutely madness to you, reach out to me anyway. And just like, my kids' YouTube say, go subscribe, click the bell, do all that good stuff. I love your feedback. I love your comments. I love the messages. I love that everyone's supporting me with this content. And we'll talk soon.